Right. Harrison, thank you so much for contributing. I think everyone is talking about data literacy, so I think it's an appropriate topic. I know you've got a few other topics to share with us. That would be great, but for now, all yours.
No, thanks, Howard. I don't know if I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are.
Great, great. I remember the other time when we had a chat. We were talking while I was in Joburg. There was
Yes.
one of the webinars that I did attend. I didn't know that we'll keep crossing paths. I'm back in Malawi. I'm
Yes,
back in
fantastic.
Malawi. Yeah. I'm now leading the data office for Standard Bank in Malawi.
Oh,
Uh,
nice, nice.
yeah, but it's always good to connect back
Yes.
to the family.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So actually, Debbie caught me because I didn't manage to come to Cape Town for this presentation for the DataCon that happened some part last month, and I think this is one of those platforms that I'm gladly with pleasure come forward to have such a conversation. So I'll take it from here, Howard, and thanks, Debbie, for the layout of the upcoming um, schedule and activities. So as you mentioned, Howard, data communities and data literacy are one of the areas that are kind of overlooked as we are all striving to get the best out of data. As we are trying to get more data-driven decision making coming out of data and all that, we are kind of leaving out this very important component. So just a background about myself. I'm yet to get certified with Dama, so I skipped a class here. So I got certified with EDM Council. I took the DCAM V2 exam. But as I've mentioned, we did cross paths with Howard a couple of times while I was in Joburg. And I've been with a couple of organizations. I think by that time I was with Hollard at the time we
Yes.
met. Yes, and I moved to ABSA, I moved to Liberty, all in the data space. So all that experience, jumping and hopping from one organization to another, it has contributed heavily to where I am currently, leading a team of data specialists from data governance, data quality, data scientists, information architecture, the data engineering, um, yeah, in all those spheres, which actually makes my job quite easier because I understand now the value chain of all the data to the use cases that I do come up with in my space. So currently, I'm doing my master's in data science. I completed my MBA. I think the time we were talking, I was still doing the MBA. And in the line of duty, I have like my very initial task when I got to Standard Bank Malawi was to come up with a strategy, the data journey, aligning it back to the business strategy, which was quite interesting. It was one of the kinds of the tasks that I was looking forward to, and in there is where I made sure that I do capture this data literacy and data awareness component, including how I'm going to structure the department. So it has worked very well to my advantage, and hence this is a very passionate topic to me. So that's just a brief about myself and where I'm coming from. So in this conversation, I'll call it a conversation, will cover these 7 building blocks when it comes to data literacy and data communities. And as we unpack this, you'll actually appreciate that we cannot do without data literacy and data awareness in our organizations. And clear enough, you will also appreciate the gaps that are there, perhaps that are kind of hindsight. We just kind of take them for granted, but they are really hard nuts to crack. And perhaps sometimes when we are dealing with change management, you wouldn't really understand that it's all coming from the literacy gap in terms of data that is existing within the organization. So we'll try to unpack this from understanding the data literacy gap itself, the challenges in data literacy, and then we'll come back to the communities. What are data communities and the benefits, and then the role that the data communities, what role does it play in bridging the literacy gap? And then we'll just touch on a few successful data communities, and then we'll finally touch on the building and engaging in the data communities. I hope we'll benefit out of this as much as I benefited a lot as I was preparing this presentation. Yeah. So you'll see that as I introduce.
Sorry, Harrison. Sorry,
yes,
Harrison.
please.
Could I ask just some clarity in terms of you refer to it as data literacy and data awareness. Is your awareness related to change management? So is that the data community part of it? So that's how you're breaking up the difference there between literacy and awareness.
Absolutely. So the literacy, we can take it to talk directly to what you would expect in an educational kind of approach.
Right.
While the awareness is the internal as well as the external understanding of the environment itself. So the awareness comes into play, much as we are not talking about awareness explicitly in this conversation, but the awareness comes into play because of the stakeholders that are particularly involved. And in my experience this time around, when I appreciate awareness coming from the sponsors of particular initiatives, and bringing it down to the actual guys who are going to be hands-on with the initiatives. I'll give an example. I have my CE who is directly involved in the awareness, and he leads it from there. And that directly talks to the appreciation of the data in its entirety, to how much the sponsors are inputting and they would want to see. So that awareness also forces everyone who is coming below them to also appreciate and internalize or externalize within their environment when it comes to the awareness. But in this context, we are just looking at those literacy, kind of an educational approach on how can we close those gaps. I hope that that distinguishes the two.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I'll be quoting a couple of guys as I go with my presentation, and in this particular one where we are trying to understand the data literacy gap, there is this quotation, the quote that I got, which says, the true value of data lies not just in its existence, but in the community that understands, interprets, and utilizes it to drive positive change. So you will appreciate now that as we are talking about data literacy, which is a fundamental skill set that empowers individuals to effectively work with data. It encompasses the capacity to comprehend data, extract meaningful insights, and effectively communicate those findings to others. Hence, explaining further down there to say, what do we mean by understanding data? So now this involves not only interpreting the numerical values, but also grasping the context, the patterns, and the relationships that exist within the data, and being able to analyze the data with various techniques and tools to uncover those valuable insights and make informed decisions. But having done that, there is no greater value out of it if you do not ably communicate that. So the third piece, when it comes to data literacy, we are looking at how do you now present this information in a clear, concise, and compelling manner, using visualizations, reports, and narratives to convey the story. Now, this is the part where the storytelling with data comes in. So you will appreciate then from that extent that data literacy is not a one-legged thing. It's not. It is effectively a three-legged thing, because you are looking at understanding the data itself, analyzing it, and then being able to communicate it. We'll see then that the literacy gap that we are discussing here can be hampered easily if we miss any of these three legs. So on the next slide, you'll appreciate with me that the literacy gaps, they are overarching across the industries. And then this notable disparity in the level of data literacy skills among individuals and organizations, it's coming out of various as an example in this case, exponential growth in volume and availability of data. Everyone is rushing to get data driven, but we are missing these gaps as we are taking this journey. So I've just covered these four key aspects, these four key areas that I feel that they are contributing to this significant gap in the data literacy skills. So one being the rapid advancement in technology. You would agree with me that today we are talking about all these technologies: big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, advanced analytics, and this has introduced quite a wide range of techniques and technologies, and to an extent that they do require some specialized knowledge and skills. And the other piece is that the diverse data sources. So we've got unstructured and structured data that is coming across. We've got various channels such as social media, sensors, Internet of Things. We are collecting data from left, right, center. I mean, every time, every adult, we are told that they spend at least 2 hours on a smartphone, and what they are doing, in essence, they are communicating, they are disseminating some information, some data out there, and these diverse data sources, without proper skills, without appreciating them and tying them back to the data literacy, we are creating a gap that keeps widening. The other piece is the lack of awareness and understanding. As I touched on this earlier, you'll find that as a result of organizations not prioritizing data literacy or allocating sufficient resources to that, we are creating this this awareness gap, and it really perpetuates to some of the decisions, and you can visibly see the gap. It's very evident that you can see the literacy gap, the data awareness. When you walk into some meetings, you will actually grasp it and see that I think, and we are actually having something here missing. So This is just to now bring this to awareness to the organization leaders, the sponsors and projects, the heads of departments, that there is need to close this literacy skills gap, or seek direct opportunities for development. And further to that, we are seeing direct insufficient investment in the data education and training. Most of the organizations are core to what they are doing in their industries. Finance, you find that people who are upskilling or getting more training are those that are in the finance. In the banking, you see that it's only those ones that are industry specific. So also just to bring this awareness to say this significant gap in data literacy skills, it's across the industries. And these are the things that we are seeing across to say, if we don't invest in data education and training, we are contributing to this widening gap when it comes to data literacy. I don't know if we are all okay there. I don't know if there is something to explain, or you would love some clarity on that.
Harrison, I am checking the chat and the things, so I will interrupt you whenever someone would like to ask a question.
Great.
Can I just maybe ask a question? I find this change very important, and I like to use that pro-sci thing of dealing with awareness, desire, and knowledge. So you don't seem to address that desire. So it's like we've got the awareness, we should deal with that before we do the education. And we got to get that right. So we got to get our data awareness right, and then our education. Is that your understanding? Is that the way you deal with it?
Yeah, so not missing out the passion of one and the curiosity that we always talk about when it comes to working with in the data field. But that's one area that we can not leave out. As I mentioned in the awareness example that I gave earlier, it also goes to the passion of the lead, and then to impart this. So the desire actually comes in. It's kind of a forced desire, if we may put it that way, because we have to get things right at the end of the day, and bringing all this kind of an awareness. It just opens up when we talk about the rapid advancement in technology, the diverse data sources, and then touching on the awareness itself and the insufficient investment. This just opens up the conversation to say these are actually the key points that are widening the gap when it comes to data literacy. So coming back to the conversation around data literacy, awareness, and the education itself, it closes that gap from the onset. So it's like you've started talking about something, and then when you come to the real thing that you want to talk about, at least everyone is already aware and appreciating what is contributing to that. So yeah, that's how I kind of look at it.
Thank you.
Thanks. And now touching on how data literacy gap hinders organizations from harnessing the full potential of data-driven decision making. I kind of touched on these five elements that I feel they have to be relooked at, and perhaps since we are now trying to talk directly to the sponsors, to direct or to lead this journey, and then without a strong foundation in data literacy, we are seeing this incomplete exploitation of data insights. So as much as we all understand this is the talk of every day, that data-driven decision making empowers organizations to unlock valuable insights, this is the talk. But without a strong foundation in data literacy, organizations may struggle to fully exploit the value of their data. Looking at the next point that I tried to capture there, if we don't apply the appropriate analytical techniques and tools, we are seeing all these obstacles in data collection, interpretation, as well as application. So data literacy, much as it is crucial for organizations to overcome challenges in data collection, interpretation, and application, without adequate literacy skills, organizations may face difficulties in identifying relevant data sources and ensuring the data quality. And I know that you love this data quality topic, and to come up with ultimately the extracting the meaningful insights. So this lack of data literacy can lead to suboptimal decision-making processes. The other point that I kind of touched on is the biases and reliance on incomplete information. Because we are trying to bring this awareness and the literacy and trying to close this literacy gap in the organization. So we are now looking at if we don't ably and if we are not able to critically analyze the data and understand its limitations, we'll end up having these biases and reliance on incomplete information. But what we are trying to do is that organizations may end up relying on subjective judgment or incomplete data sets. Bringing around this data literacy will bring the awareness to the whole data value that is available in most of the organizations, and then will no longer rely on the gut instincts, which is what we are trying to run away from when we talk about being data driven. The other point there is on the ability to leverage data effectively. We are seeing a lot of missed opportunities for data growth and optimization because of lack of closing this literacy gap. So as a result, most of the organizations miss out on opportunities to optimize their processes, enhance customer experiences, or develop innovative products and services. So this ultimately, because most of our organizations are in business, they tend to fall behind the competition, because to keep pace with competitors and to who leverage on data effectively, we need to close this as a very, very important aspect when it comes to being data driven. So I just touched on these 5 areas, but I know there are a lot of areas that we can use as examples to just identify and point out how data literacy gap hinders organizations from harnessing the full potential of data, of being a data driven and decision making. I don't know if that has resonated to some of the guys that are on the call.
Harrison, we have a question from Drew.
Yes, please, if you can read it out.
Yeah, so I'll read it out, Harrison. So I buy everything that you're saying here, but what I've also noticed in some organizations is that there's still a reluctance to trust people with data. There's a question of we don't think you should see this, or we don't think you should see that. How do you break that bias to really enable data literacy?
Yeah, thanks, Drew. So it's been a journey, and I think that's one thing that should be at the back of everyone's mind. It's a change management thing from the onset. So treating this whole data awareness and literacy as a change would also ease some of the conversations, because there is always this pushback. People are used to their ways of doing things, and to come in and now break those silos and converge or integrate and explain the whole value chain of the data itself becomes very difficult. But in my space, how I have tried to break these silos and barriers is by creating some data communities within the organization. So I initiated the conversation around data stewards that are sitting within the functions. and we have a monthly data forum as an example. So in those data forums, when you hear your colleague from another function talking about something that has been a pain to you, it just eases you, and then you also open up. So that way, the community has been very active, like in my case, and the data forums have really helped when it comes to the data literacy and the data awareness. So that's just one example that I've used. Apart from the continuous engagements with the sponsors of the other projects that I have, and involving the projects team from the onset, from the BRD, and understanding the BRT, having those workshops just to close that gap. From the subsequent slides, you'll also appreciate how some of the terminologies that we use and we are constantly mentioning, how they push away our colleagues when it comes to data literacy and awareness. I don't know if that has helped, Drew.
Happy with that, thank you.
Great. So I'll move on to the next piece, where we'll talk about the challenges in data literacy. And the quote here is, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much, and data communities exemplify the power of collective knowledge and collaboration. So this is a quote that I got from Helen Keller. Now moving on, I would just wanted to appreciate how this complex data landscape, due to rapid advancement in technology and data source, is also contributing to this widening literacy gap. So I tried to put in as much content as I can, but you will appreciate with me that the data landscape is being affected directly by the technology landscape. And now, as I mentioned, with the data sources and the rapid technological advancements, we are all being caught up in this mix. And if we don't close some of these complex data landscape with our own approach in closing the data literacy gap, we'll also be caught in the middle of catching up. So the integration and interoperability of these technologies and the data landscape is also contributing heavily to the literacy gap. And just mentioning again, the proliferation of the diverse data sources presents significant challenges in data literacy for individuals and organizations. And again, touching on data privacy and security again. The growing concerns around data privacy and security is another, it just adds another layer of complexity to the data landscape. And therefore, understanding the legal and ethical considerations associated with data collection, storage, and usage is crucial for data literacy. Big data and scalability. The volume, the 5 V's, I've left the other two. They are also a big concern to this data landscape. And managing and analyzing such large volumes of data require advanced techniques and tools, as we mentioned earlier. Data complexity itself and data quality, the increasing complexity of data, including its structure, the format, the inherent biases, they pose challenges for data literacy as well. So all these challenges or these hindrances, we are tying them back to the data literacy itself to say, then how do we close these gaps? And I'll also just dive in on the awareness bit that we touched on earlier on. So we evidently see the limited understanding of data value as a total organization, and the missed opportunities that we also mentioned earlier on when it comes to innovation and growth. So without a clear understanding of the importance of data literacy, most professionals, as I mentioned, finance, marketing, legal, compliance, may overlook the opportunities to leverage data for innovation and growth. Insufficient investment in data education, we also touched on that, as well as just touching on the resistance to change and fear of technology. This one is one interesting piece that I think even in the other profession, as much as they are good at what they do in their profession, but this change and fear of technology is always catching up with most of the people, even where they are sitting. So lack of awareness about data literacy can contribute to resistance to change and fear of technology among professionals. So we are appreciating other professionals, but we are also identifying some of these gaps that are there within the data literacy. Inability to communicate data insights effectively. So this comes back to how do we communicate the when we are talking about data literacy. So just to also touch on the technical jargons that tend to become barriers in understanding data concepts. So I know I touched on this earlier, but we should just tone down. We should just tone down when it comes to talking about data. We know we've got our jargons and the technical language that we do communicate in, but we in the long run we tend to lose and leave behind some people. So the complexity of the terminologies, if we could just tone down on that, these terminologies can be intimidating and overwhelming for individuals who are new in the field or lack a technical background when it comes to data, and they bring about the disconnect between technical and non-technical roles. As I mentioned, marketing people that are not quite familiar with our language when it comes to data. And this disconnect can create a communication gap, making it challenging for non-technical individuals to grasp and effectively participate in the data-related discussions or projects. So this brings me back to the data forums, the monthly data forums that we do have at our organization. So initially, when we started to talk about we talked about data without classifying what we would really want to talk about, and you could pick the tone in the language and how people were getting lost in the whole conversation. This prompted me to take a step and focus and prepare material that I know that they'll be relevant to data awareness and data literacy. Using that material and deliberately making sure that we are addressing this data literacy gap has really helped me to bring along everyone. And initially we were having a few people joining the forum, but these days you'll see that over 50 people join, and it has been gradually increasing the numbers. So this also just tells the value that that everyone, the individuals are getting out of this conversation. We still treat data as a new thing in our organization, and making these conversations interesting has brought about everyone to now come and listen more to what is this data all about? What are these guys doing? And then you showcase some of the solutions that have come out of data science, some solutions that have come out of the insights and the analytics, the automations that are coming out. It's becoming more exciting, and we are seeing that our numbers when it comes to participation are increasing. and you find some repeat guys coming because we've made it more interesting to talk about data while we are deliberately addressing the awareness and the literacy gap. So we tried to tone down on the technical jargons because we understood that there are some interpretations and misunderstanding when it comes to some of the words that we used, and effectively we just had to overcome this jargon barrier. So using providing contextual understanding, simplifying complex terms, offering targeted training and resources, and promoting collaboration and cross-functional learning. And in these data forums, we have representatives from all the functions within the organization. So this has really closed this conversation. We've dealt with the jargons aspect, the awareness aspect, as well as the communication aspect as we try to address this. I don't know if there are any questions or comments, just or clarity required on this one.
Harrison, I have a question, but I'd be interested to see if anybody else has a question before I ask. Any questions from the people? Shirley, is there something you'd like to ask now, or are you okay?
No, happy, thank you.
Okay. So Harrison, the question I have is that what I'm seeing a lot of your education and talk is focusing on insights and AI and machine learning and things like that, but there's not a lot of focus or any attention being paid to the fundamentals of data management. Now, when you see people like Scott Taylor, who speaks about making sure we've got the truth first, that we understand how to get the truth out of data before we look for meaning. I'm not seeing that in your literacy training. Isn't that also crucial as part of this journey?
No, absolutely, absolutely. It is quite crucial. So we've tried to tackle that from a different angle, whereby in breaking the silos that I mentioned earlier, we are also trying to bring about that truth component, because what we are doing in the journey itself is to create a truth source of data.
Yeah.
So creating that truth source of data, we are now forcing to break those silo barriers,
Yeah.
and to allow everyone to accept that this is our sole truth. It's
Yeah.
difficult to someone who is used to doing things their own way, but we have to convince them and take them through the journey and how we arrive at that truth. So these are like specific people who, for example, they prepare some certain monthly reports, and to carry them through that journey, we walk with them in a parallel kind of a journey. So their report, they will run it that way, and then because we've created this using the data engineering piece, we've created this truth. We have to get their buy-in, which is mostly I have really felt the resistance in that area as well. But the moment that they get this truth and say that even if we use this route, we are still arriving at the same thing that I'm used to doing. It has also been incorporated in the journey itself, but this is very specific to say it's not a bank-wide kind of a journey, but this is specific to certain people that produce like reports, because once that report has been produced, the language is still the same to wherever they take the reports or the presentations. So we've created this layer of involving them and bringing them along the journey of appreciating the the one source of the truth that we've developed. So it's been a journey. As I've been in this position for 1 year, and bringing all these pieces together has just been so exciting, and to see how even managing change is playing its course.
I suppose where I'm not understanding is that it's really up to the business to define what the expectations of the truth is. So we actually have to start with our business people in helping them define what truth is, and that then communicates to the engineers. The engineers can't really decide what is truthful without the business. But let's not go there. There's two questions. One is from Carolyn, who's actually asking, how do you encourage people to join the forums? What makes them want to attend? That's the first question. And then we've got Hisham and Dumi that have their hands up. So there's three waiting. So let's start with the first one from Carolyn. Carolyn?
Yeah. So I took this from some observations that I went around across the business, just to appreciate how data is being consumed, how data is being utilized, and how people just literally appreciate data within the organization itself. So in the initial conversation, it was about the silos that I keep mentioning, and you would find that the person actually is literally sitting next to you has their output is the input to your report, as an example. And just to understand those kind of dynamics within the organization prompted this to say, but do you know that the one sitting next to you actually does produce what you input into your own report?
Right.
So bringing about that conversation, it started small, and then I had to present in the one department, Manco, where I was invited to present about the data journey itself. So in there, I had to unveil the whole data value chain. And this prompted to say, I think I'm only a component within the data value chain, or within the whole story that I'm trying to tell. And bringing this awareness, the initial awareness to the organization, prompted that I think, because what I take from here as a credit person inputs into the finance report that goes out on a monthly basis. Therefore,
Right.
when I called everyone for this, the initial conversation around the data forum itself, people already had that understanding of saying, I can get some input into my process, and my output is an input to someone's process. So the initial conversation that I had at the Manco level set the tone. And then because I opened up the conversation from that point on, then the managers had to go to their people and tell them, do you know actually that this is what is happening? So the next step that I did was to prompt various functions to say, I need data stewards. Can you please volunteer data stewards? So it was now from that background of the managers that they had this understanding of saying, this is the person who can now take this data conversation much better in our department. And these people also act as the subject matter experts when we've got a project that is talking about a particular department, as an example. So we've got a data steward for credit who also acts as a subject matter expert when it comes to any other projects within their department. So that's how, Debbie, that's how kind of Caroline, I started with the data forum itself. So as the word of mouth went out, everyone now started getting interested in the conversation, because what then we'll also see when we look at the communities, the collaborations and the interactions continued from there. And now everyone, when they leave the forum, they've learned something and they are comfortable enough to take a step and have a conversation and collaborate with the next person.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Carolyn, any comments from your side?
Oh, thank you, Harrison. It does sound to me like it is management or leadership driven, and that you've got the buy-in from the leaders, and the leaders are then telling their team that they need to get involved.
Absolutely.
So it's driven from your leaders.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hisham, your question?
Okay, hello, hi everyone. Yeah, just a quick one on my side, touching on change management and talking about resistance. I always kind of like, I'm always keen to hear like live examples of how did you go about solving a resistance. And the leading part of this question is, what if a resistance sometimes comes from some of the business leaders? And I would appreciate also an input from Howard's on the second part of that question also. What would be like if you can give us a live scenario of what happened, the process that you have followed, and what's the outcome? Because sometimes you can overcome this resistance, or you will have to force this resistance by having more buy-in from the executive to say, okay, we reach the end of this route and we cannot move further because of X, Y, and Z, for example.
Absolutely. No, thanks for that question. So I'll give you a live example. So when I just joined the organization, we did not have a good uptake on usage of the dashboards that I found that were developed. So I took a step back to understand how were these dashboards developed. So the team told me that we just developed them. We just saw that business was lacking in this, and we developed them. So from that, I quickly picked that that could be something that, or there could be something that these guys did miss. So I introduced the BRD, Business Requirements Document, and the BRD, I tried to simplify it to the very simplest business language that these guys will enjoy to write. Documenting is not everyone's tea. So from that involvement of saying, okay, business, sit here, what do you want to see? And working with them in that journey of building their solution. We call it their solution. So initially they have to give us the requirements. We sit with them, technical people and business people, try to understand the requirements, and then bring them along the journey of building this. I found this to be very effective in a way that business feels like they are part of the solution. And therefore, when it comes to handing over the solution to them, it's much more easier because they've already been part of that change as we were working with them, as we were building the solution itself. So that has really worked for me. So working with the business in the journey of solutioning as one way, as well as frequent updates or feedback. I've separated the two because working with them, it means they are fully involved. But when you're also feedbacking every now and again on what is happening, also keeps them in the loop, and they also kind of go with you in the journey. So I have appreciated that involving the users is one way of managing change from the onset, and this has really worked for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Hisham, if you asked me for an example, I'm currently working in Saudi at the moment, and when I go and talk to the executives about what the Crown Prince wants to achieve and some of the core principles, he has set up a principle called open data. And there is such confusion amongst the business people as to what open data means. And of course, the immediate interpretation is that they must give their data away for free. So everything has to disappear. And they have lots of resistance to that, not just little resistance. Is the case of saying, I've been making all sorts of money by selling it to universities, my air quality data, my this, my that, and now you want me to give it away for free. So we come, a lot of the times we're coming back to the language that we're using and their understanding of what that data is. And I've also just seen a post from John O'Gorman on understanding the fundamentals of data and building it up from there. But we had a challenge where we had to show them as to how they can still sell data and make data open. And so that was a big thing, but we were very fortunate that they actually said, you must be crazy that you want me to give this data away. We were lucky that that statement came out. And so we could start dealing with it and showing them techniques of how to use open data as a marketing platform. And then they can get people knocking on the door to say, there's some lovely data sets that you've got there, but do you have more details about this, this, and this? Are we showing them patterns, trends, knowledge, and things like that? So there's that technique of clearly understanding where the miscommunication or misunderstanding is, and then addressing it there, and then building the desire to say, okay, that means that if I use this platform, then I can get more sales.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Howard.
Excellent. Drew, was that you? Did you say something then?
I just made a noise. Apologies. It's great to making a noise.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were telling me that I was talking nonsense again, but Dumi, I saw your hand was up. Dumi, did we answer your question?
I think that was Hisham. I haven't asked my question yet. I wanted to ask about data quality. How much involvement do you get from your communities, and what kind of responsibilities do you give them to improve the quality together with the data office team?
Yeah, no, thanks to me. Data quality is a very sensitive subject because when you just mention garbage in, garbage out, everyone jitters. But to get the responsibility actually of cleaning or remediating the data is a very touchy subject. So as you would appreciate, I'm in the financial regulated industry, and data quality is is a non-negotiable component. So when it comes to data quality and how we tackle it, so we've segmented the data quality issues. So we've got a dashboard, we've got the rules in there, and they throw out these exceptions. And the first thing that I did was to interact directly with management in the MANCO itself and bring out this communication like as is. This is the problem. When it comes to completeness, this is where we are sitting, and elaborate to the managers or to the leaders the consequences of that being a regulated industry. And this has to drill down. Everyone has to feel it, that we are actually playing with our banking license here. Because if we give out wrong information to the regulator and they find out, it means there are consequences after that. So I think having that honest conversation from the onset, it really helped me to start now segmenting the data issues. So as an example, I've got a lead now in the CIB or in the corporate side of the bank. I've got someone sitting in the retail side, and these are leads. And even on their goals for the year, they've contracted on data quality. So making it really having this hard conversation around data quality has really helped me because we reached that level of saying there are no two ways about it. But not being harsh on them, on the other hand, but drilling down the message of saying garbage in, garbage out, as literal as that. So, and during the data forums, those issues that these guys are experiencing as they are remediating the data come out. And because it's a full community, we have these conversations. How did these ones solve this issue? How did these ones solve the problem? And the community is also helping in when it comes to solutioning for some of the problems that the other areas are experiencing when they are remediating their data exceptions. I don't know if that helps, Tommy.
Yeah, that helps very much. Thanks, Harrison. And
thank you.
Thanks, Howard. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Harrison, I think we at the top of the hour. Is there a way to provide just a summary of the way forward, or I can see we haven't got through a lot of your slides. Unfortunately, we can always bring you back. We can always bring you back for further discussion.
Yeah, let me just talk about one thing. This will be my last slide then. So I just wanted to bring about this conversation around the best practices for building and engaging the data communities. We can always talk about the data community in its entirety, but because I introduced this data forum and the monthly meetings that we do have, I felt like closing with this best practices for building and engaging the data communities would be very helpful. Even to our community here. So knowing the target and the audience specific needs and interests, fostering engagement through discussion. So it's an open kind of conversation, as I've been explaining, as well as having a collaboration portal where people can ask questions and they can get answers. We've also gone a step further to involve other experts. So, for example, in the Africa region, in our organization, there are some countries that have done something better. So we do bring them in. 15-minute talk. How did you tackle this? And it just excites the people to say we are not alone in these problems, especially the data quality issue. That's why I was laughing when Tumi mentioned it. So we bring in other experts to just give a talk around how they overcame some of the hurdles that they also met. So Howard, I just felt like just sharing these best practices would also help the community going forward.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you so much.
So before we close, I know there's probably a whole lot of questions. Does anyone have some questions? There's lots of people saying they have to run, so just checking. Any questions before we close? Harrison, I would certainly like to say thank you. It's been great. I think the discussion is amazing, something that we have to pay attention to. And I'm glad you're bringing it down to the change side of it and helping people understand and grow in their education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, so we don't seem to have any other questions. Di's put her hand up. Di, yes, the quality specialist.
Yeah, thank you, Harrison. That was really illuminating. And I only have one question, and that's about setting up your data forum, perhaps your data community. Is that run by you from a technical perspective, or is it run by the business representatives themselves?
Sorry, did I come again? Yeah.
Is it the business people that run your data community, your data forum, or do you run that?
No, we do run it. We do run it from our end. Yeah. So we set the conversation and the topics, and but we involve the business. It's their platform, but we we set it up for
you
them.
facilitate it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I would like to see that kind of thing being run from a business perspective, because I think this is a business issue, this data literacy. The data analysts kind of think they know all about data, and the scientists and so on. It's people, every single person in the organization has to be involved in data literacy. It's something that affects them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a journey, we are getting all these learnings, and you are absolutely right, because eventually it has to be, the business has to own it. But in the meantime, we are running, we are facilitating until such a time that we can trust them to remediate and take care of the problems.
So a lot of it's about a transitioning thing. You establish it and then find the people to run with it and let them
Correct.
go.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Harrison. A most interesting
You're welcome,
discussion.
Dad.
That was very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Drew, I see your hands up, Drew.
Yeah, please. Harrison, metrics and measurement of progress. How do you guys go about showing that you are actually making progress and use that to market your program, the success of your program?
Yeah. So we do that, Drew. So we identified critical data elements, and we identified some pieces of areas that we would want to measure as well. So we've got some projects that we are also running, and we are checking the data quality in those things. So we have a point of start and how we are progressing in data quality specifically, and how we are doing as an example. So we look at the features of quality data, obviously. So we are looking at completeness, we are looking at consistency, we are looking at all those elements that we look in data quality. But initially we had to identify what we would want to measure, and the critical data elements were picked by business. And going back to Dai's conversation, business picked the critical data elements, and we help them monitor them and point them the direction of remediation.
Does that give you some indication then of the acceptance of your data literacy program as well?
Yeah. Yes, it does. It does directly correlate.
So, Drew, there's another thing that you may be interested. We dealt that with Christine, where she has a set of change management indicators in terms of engagement, adoption, resistance, and things like that, which are also helpful. What I do battle with sometimes, it's not always easy to get a quantitative metric. They they can have some challenges there to be able to measure someone's resistance.
Yeah.
But
it's a perceptive measurement, David.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting because I pushed her on this thing to say, give me a metric. Tell me how to measure this thing. How do I measure it with data? And she said, well, you know what? They sit down and there's 5 of them and they discuss about how engaged they are, how resistant they are, and they come up. But what she did do was saying this is an important discussion that we need to have, and we need to have these measurements so that we can see whether our program is dealing with that engagement and acceptance.
Yeah, I suppose if they pitch for the meeting, you're making progress.
Yeah. Yeah. At a simple level.
That's
Now,
a good.
okay, so we've got two others. Tali can I think you next, and then Di.
Oh, hi, colleagues. My name is Matabo. So I actually wanted to also just ask the same question, maybe delve into it a bit more. So, for instance, we also have that community of practice that we run on a monthly basis, and it's growing, and we are trying to mature it. However, that is one of my challenge, the measuring part of the effectiveness of the community, because of as I say, that it's growing and we're getting more members and more people are interested in the topics that we're presenting and so on and so on. But the thing is, you can never have that I suppose a success factor to say that the fact that everybody now in our organization would know about data and how to manage data, where they actually got all of that information from the community of practice, as much as there's information out there that they read up from, there's various sources that they can get all this information from. However, the one that actually was impactful or changed their lives from receiving that information from the community of practice, those are some of the things that I'd like to actually measure and check if are we in any case effective, are we in any case changing their lives? Should we still continue with this community of practice, or should it be a case that we just send out information on a monthly basis where they can read up, So it's that thing that I actually would like advice on. Because I also just saw that probably there was a gap when we started where we should have probably measured their current skills, at that point in time. So that at this time, because we've been 2 years into it, so in like 2 years, what have they learned? What is it that has made their lives better? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Thanks, Matabo. I would love to approach that in the I know, Howard, you'll also touch on this by looking at the general data management maturity journey, and approaching it in that way, you will not leave anyone behind, because when you're looking at the maturity matrices, you pull along all the components within the maturity, and that will give you satisfaction on your maturity journey. Drilling down to one component, I think, would be unfair to yourself. But if you were to look at the maturity in its entirety, so you'll be looking at your strategy as an example, as a starting point as well. And then you look at how you've matured in your data analytics, how you are now looking, how you are delivering your solutions, and how they are getting adopted, and then include the data quality component, the data governance. How are we also maturing in the data governance? I think it would be unfair to yourself if you were to just narrow down to one component, but looking at the maturity in its entirety. I don't know what's your take on that, Howard.
Yeah, so we actually very interesting. What we do as well is we've adopted the maturity assessment to a personal maturity assessment. So
Mhm.
what is everybody's knowledge and understanding of all those different areas? I like what you're saying. And Mataba, if you are interested, we can share with you a personal maturity assessment, and then people will show you how they're learning. And especially what we like to do is to say almost between the levels 0 and 3, it's
Yep.
all about change, the awareness. Say, are they aware of a data quality expectation? Are they
Mhm.
aware of a business glossary? Are they aware of whatever it is, a strategy? Do they understand it? And then what is required, so you can start measuring that gap between
Yep.
what we require of our people and where they are. And so that helps you as well to work on the gap.
Mhm. Absolutely.
All right, last question from Di. Di?
Yeah, thank you again, Harrison. Thank you, Howard. I think the last discussion has kind of addressed my question. I wanted to know if you'd done an assessment of your people
Yeah.
to show where they were, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
typically where I start. Let's see what
Yeah.
they know and try and fill that data literacy gap. But I think
Yeah.
the last discussion has addressed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks, Di. Mataba, are you comfortable? Did that also answer your question?
Oh yes, it's helping to frame it. So I would
Okay.
be very much interested to see that the personal maturity assessment.
Right.
Yes, please.
And you will see as tomorrow we're actually going to show you how we apply it to help people with their careers, because that's also part of this journey, in saying, where are you? Where would you like to be? How do we get you there? How do we do the right education, the right projects, the right work? And so it's helping, working with them to understand their career. And then we call it a data talent or data people strategy. What's our gaps and how do we need to close them and things like that.
Thank you.
Harrison, anything closing from your side? Is there a final comment from you, sir?
No, not really. Just appreciating the community and the relationship. We are back.
Thank you.
I didn't leave. I only left Joburg,
No,
but
no.
I'm within the community, of course.
Oh, we actually had. I just got an email from Duncan
Oh yeah,
from
Botswana.
Botswana, and he sends his regards. So he
Oh,
says,
awesome! Thank you.
fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers, Veronica.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.